Part 1. Origins of his birth. Adolf Hitler, the man who stirred the whole world with his tumultuous life events and fatal decisions, was born in Braunau am Inn, Austria, on April 20, 1889. As the saying goes, a person's roots cast a shadow over his every action and decision in his life's journey. His father, Alois Hitler, was a strict customs official, while his mother, Clara Hitler, was a quiet and loyal woman. Despite the difficult economic conditions that Hitler's family experienced, Adolf's childhood was not without difficulties. At the age of 14, Hitler lost his father, who died of pneumonia, which left a deep imprint on the young Hitler's psyche. With little financial support, he had to take responsibility for himself and face life's challenges alone. Part 2. His childhood and youth. In the context of this difficult life, Hitler grew up as a young man characterized by great ambition and a strong desire to achieve something tangible in his life. He was greatly influenced by the arts and drawing, and he hoped to find a future in the field of plastic arts. However, there was no promising future in this field, and circumstances forced him to search for new horizons. Although he was not an outstanding student at school, Hitler had an unconventional vision for his future. He moved to Vienna in 1907, where he faced financial challenges and learned life through systematic work. During this period, Hitler discovered new political and social ideas and began to develop his own visions about the future of nations and the role of the individual in determining their destiny. Hitler's transition into the political arena was followed at this early stage of his life, where his nationalist and racist ideas began to emerge. We can see here the hazy beginnings of what would later become when Hitler would enter German politics and establish the Nazi Workers' Party that would change the course of history. This is an extended introduction to parts 1 and 2 of the life of Adolf Hitler. If you need more details or specification of specific points, please let me know. Part 3. Failing in school. Focusing on the late period of his youth, we find that Hitler suffered from poor academic achievement. Despite his brilliance in some artistic fields, Hitler did not appear well in the academic arena. In his final years at school, his difficulties in adapting to the traditional learning environment increased, which led to him leaving the school in Linz in 1905. Part 4. Moving to Vienna. After leaving school, Hitler headed to Vienna in search of a better future. Vienna at the time was a vibrant urban center, but Hitler found himself living a difficult and bitter life. He was struggling financially and living in harsh conditions, but this period was crucial in shaping his opinions and directing him towards politics. During this period, Hitler began to develop his political and social vision. He had the opportunity to continue his studies and expand his knowledge, but he failed to get into the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. During this period, he also acquired his racist and nationalist views, which would play a large role in his future direction. This is a continuation of the life path of Adolf Hitler, showing the difficulties and challenges he faced at different stages of his early life. If you require more details or have special requests, please let me know. Part 5. Getting into politics. Amidst the social and economic struggles in Vienna, Adolf Hitler began to develop interests in politics. He joined the German Socialist Workers' Party and soon became active in local political circles. This period was important in shaping his views and inspiring his political future. At that time, Hitler's ideas were gradually evolving towards German nationalism and racism, and he was inspired by his experiences and observations. He was particularly influenced by German racist thought and the social and economic problems he experienced in Vienna. His views on the Jews and the conspiracies allegedly run by this group became increasingly strong. Part 6. His military service in World War I. In 1914, World War I broke out, and Hitler was not far from these important events. He decided to join the Bavarian army and proudly served in its ranks. During his service, Hitler participated in many battles, including the Battle of the Somme and the Battle of Ibraha, and this military experience was crucial in shaping his views and belief in German nationalism. This war was an influential period for Hitler, as his beliefs in nationalist and racist thought were confirmed. He suffered injuries related to war gases, and this experience affected his mental health later, which increased his determination to achieve his goals. This period of Hitler's life marked his slow transition towards politics and leadership, giving him the ideas and experiences that would form the basis of his future public life. Those difficult days and harsh moments on the battlefields were the cornerstone of building and shaping his character. If there is further guidance you would like or additional questions, please feel free to ask. Part 7. Founding of the Nazi Workers' Party. After the end of World War I and his return to Munich, Hitler decided to become more involved in politics. He joined the German Workers' Party, DAP, a small party concerned with social and political affairs. Hitler attracted attention because of his oratorical talents and his ability to attract audiences. Hitler soon became one of the party's leaders, transforming it into the Nazi Workers' Party, NSDAP, which later became known as the Nazi Party. The party's ideology focused on the ideas of German nationalism and racism as Hitler began to formulate his own vision about the future of Germany. As his ideology developed, Hitler became the driving force behind the party, and thanks to his oratorical skills and ability to inspire, the party quickly attracted supporters. Part 10. His rise to power. After Hitler was released from prison in 1924, he actively resumed his political activity. He led a major transformation of the Nazi Workers' Party, beginning to build a powerful network of partisans and supporters. Hitler skillfully used the media and racist speeches to attract more people to the ranks of his party. By exploiting the difficult economic conditions affecting Germany after World War I, Hitler succeeded in transforming his party into an influential political force. He continued to promote his idea of the need to restore Germany's greatness and establish a strong government that would protect the interest of the people. In the parliamentary elections of 1930, the Nazi Workers' Party achieved notable success as the number of its representatives in the German parliament increased significantly. Hitler now had a stronger platform to influence and pursue his political goals. Part 11. World War II. In September 1939, World War II broke out after Germany invaded Poland. The following years saw Hitler's influence expand and the Nazi Allied armies advance across Europe. The countries of Europe gradually coalesced into accelerating conflicts, and Nazi expansionism led to massive changes in the political and economic arena. Hitler relied on a strategy of quick war, blitzkrieg, which resulted in rapid and surprise invasions. The world witnessed dramatic transformations, from the attack on Poland to the occupation of France and attacks on Britain. This period of life was the embodiment of Nazi power and Hitler's influence on the international arena. Part 12. Hitler's assassination attempt and bloody transformation. In July 1944, a mob of German officers carried out a failed assassination attempt on Hitler's life, known as the July 20th plot. The goal of this plot was to overthrow the Nazi regime and end the war. Although the plot failed and Hitler remained in power, it was an important shift in the world's view of the Nazi regime. The final years of the war saw escalating destruction and brutality as Nazi air attacks became barbaric, targeting European cities. Despite some surprise Nazi victories, Allied forces began to make significant advances on the eastern and western fronts, and defeat was slowly approaching. Those final years were full of bloody events, from the Nazis' desperate attempts to defend the Reichstag in Berlin to the final liberation of Europe from the Nazis in May 1945. These are the stations of the 10th, 11th, and 12th parts of the life of Adolf Hitler and his effects on the world. If there are any further inquiries or discussions you would like, please feel free to mention them. Part 13. The collapse of the Nazi regime and the end of Hitler's life. In the final period of World War II, the political and military landscape underwent major transformations, and the end of the Nazi regime was inevitable. In April 1945, as Soviet and Allied forces approached Berlin, The end of the Nazi regime seemed inevitable. On April 30th, Hitler decided to commit suicide in the German parliament, Reichstag, in Berlin. Hitler used poison, according to official reports, and ended his life in the bunker. In the following days, Nazi resistance collapsed, and on May 2nd, Nazi German forces surrendered permanently. Part 14. The Nuremberg Trial and International Implications. After the war, a plan was prepared to try the main Nazi leaders before the Nuremberg Military Tribunal. These trials were intended to achieve justice and hold Nazi leaders accountable for their crimes. Matters relating to wars of aggression, crimes against humanity, and war crimes were considered. Hitler was dead, but the court continued to prosecute several major Nazi leaders, including Hermann Göring and Rudolf Hess. In October 1946, the court announced the final rulings, and some prominent leaders were executed. The Nuremberg Tribunal was greatly influential in shaping the international foundations of justice and reckoning. Part 15. Assessing Hitler's legacy and impact on history. After the end of World War II and the collapse of the Nazi regime, the winning countries began to evaluate the impact of Hitler and Nazism on history and the world. The Nuremberg Tribunal and other international efforts were intended to avoid a repeat of such a terrible regime. Hitler's legacy left a lasting impact on the world. His reign was filled with tragedy and destruction, as the world witnessed incredible events of war, persecution, and genocide. Regarding Nazi ideas, various societies around the world resisted their adoption and worked to avoid the repetition of such malicious ideas. Despite the obvious negative impact, Hitler's history remains a source of study and research. Analyzing his life and influence helps us better understand the circumstances that led to the rise of Nazism and the mistakes that led to its downfall. Studying it also helps us avoid repeating the mistakes made during that dark period in modern history. This is a comprehensive look at the 13th, 14th, and 15th installments of Adolf Hitler's life, his influences, and the end of the Nazi regime. If there are any additional inquiries or requests for expansion on certain points, please let me know.